Hello everybody, welcome to this third video challenge. I guess it's the third video challenge of April. My name is Wade Acuff. I'm going to be your host today, and we're going to work with After Effects and Adobe Express and working on presentations. We're going to add a little bit of motion graphics to your presentations, and I think that's where we're going to start. Well, you know what? We're going to start by saying hi. I already did a big round of hellos in chat. If you want to check us out over on Behance and or YouTube, we are there right now. So check that out. But let's go ahead and get started and take a little dip into Adobe Express. So I don't know if you guys have used Adobe Express very much, but there's a presentation option that you shouldn't sleep on. I'm going to jump right into it. As soon as you press the presentation button, you get all these options over here. There's templates already for you to go. Now, if you're like me, or I want to have my hands all over the presentations as far as like designing things and making stuff. I've only had a couple of chances to actually use this for real presentations, but there are tons of templates already ready to go. And what this challenge is about customizing the template you pick. I'm going to pick one. You can actually see sneak peek, little heart down here. That's the one that I favorited that we're going to work on. But I'm just going to choose one. Let's see, find one sort of at random, maybe. Let's see what I can find. But what I would do is, especially if you're just trying to add a little bit of motion, trying to find something that pops out at me that might have some little elements that we could animate. Okay, here's one. Okay, let's do this one. So I'm just going to load this up real quick just to show you. So I just immediately, I'm drawn to these shapes, all these little shapes that we could take into After Effects, like this starburst. We could take that into After Effects and we could animate that and then bring it back over to Express. That's sort of what we're going to do today. But we're going to do it from, I'm going to go back. Just going to hop back in. We're going to do it from the one that I picked because I already know what I'm dealing with. And there's some fun little shapes and things we're going to create. But the idea is the same. Find something you like, the template that you like. I think this was Sunrise Wellness Center. It's just a template. Probably doesn't exist. But there's a bunch of options and you could customize all of this. Now, here's the thing. I could say like, oh, let's go recreate everything. And that is what we're going to do in After Effects, the things that we're going to make. But a little pro tip, you don't have to. Let's click on this little logo. And if you see the menu over here for more, if you go down and go to source info, you will get an asset ID that you can copy and paste and go over to stock.adobe.com. Search for that asset, and if everything works correctly, boom, you've got that logo. You can download it, you can use it, but it's with most of these elements. And if they have the source info, they're usually going to have an ID tag that you can copy and paste. And if everything goes according to plan, you have that asset. So you won't even have to build some of these if you don't want to. But we're going to focus on building this guy, and then we're going to do something special with these bullet points. So that is the plan today. So let's hop over into After Effects, and I can show you the source file I gave you is some of these elements that have been recreated in After Effects. They are not the assets that we just looked at. They're not stock assets, I should say. But I'll get to the bullet points here in a moment. But let's start off with recreating this shape. And I'm going to do that in a new composition. Oh, have there been waves today? Is there something with waves going on? I just saw the comment. But I'm going to start with a new composition, and I'm going to call this Start Waves or something. And then without anything selected, nothing in our composition, just pick the pen tool. And you will make a shape layer. I'm going to try and make a diagonal because first I want to set this up with, our stroke is set to 0. I want to set to about 4. But when you start with nothing, you're going to make a shape layer. And I'm trying to make a grid, like a diagonal grid. And you could come in here and start grabbing these contents and, duplicating, Control D, and then coming over and grabbing this and moving this out one by one. But we're not going to do that. No, not going to do that. In Contents, you have this little add toggle that will let you get to the repeater. And that's what we're going to use if you dive into the repeater. And I'm going to open up, I got a little hair right there. I am going to open up this to get to the transform repeater. But first, we're going to make some copies. So what I like to do is make some copies and then offset this to the left. And then I think this needs to be a little bit closer. So I'm going to change the position. And we'll probably, we'll have to add more copies. Let's shift it over first. And then we can add as many copies as we need. Boom. So we're kind of getting there. All we need now is the wave. So super simple. If you come into After Effects and grab the wave warp and make sure you're selected and double click, you will apply the wave warp. Now you still have to set the diagonal to the correct kind of angle here. I've got it at 35. I'm going to boost the waves way up because if you remember, we're just kind of duplicating that wavy look. I'll just pop back into this real quick. So we're kind of trying to duplicate this effect, but we're going to use this as a background starting soon slide. It is already animated, so if you press play or the keyboard or the space bar, sorry, you will go ahead and get the animation. I think it's a bit fast. I also think it's a bit busy. You'll also notice, now right now it looks like it is kind of making waves. I'm not sure what it's going to look like on your screens. Uh-oh, we got a problem. Okay, there we go. But when you have this, the transparency set, and you have that little checkerboard behind it, it does look like it's moving, but if you add a background, it's probably not going to look like that. But we are going to add a background with a solid layer, Control Y. I don't want this to be white. I'm going to name this purple. Oh, I promise, guys, I did not pick a purple theme because Val is our mod. I promise. Absolutely promise. But speaking of that purple, if you ever want to grab some info, color info in this case, I want to use the same exact purple. You can go into the background color up here. If it says swatches, switch it over to custom, and right down here, you'll get the hex code for that, and you can just click that, copy to the keyboard, and then come right back over into your color, Control V, and now we have the exact same color and a background. Now this looks similar. I'll say similar to what we have over here, and that's fine. We just want to sort of ballpark it. But I do think it's a bit busy. I think it's a bit fast. So I'm going to slow this down with our wave speed to about 0.3. And I think we also need some contrast. This kind of dark on dark. I know that's what's used for texture on the design, the template design. But I'm going to mix it up a little bit by making the stroke of this white and then probably bringing that down a little bit. But I also think it's really busy, so let's dive into this shape, the repeater and the transform, and we can widen these out a little bit so it's not so busy. And that looks okay. Now, see, this does look like it's just moving, sliding up, but there is an actual wave going on. But a way to kind of make that stand out is just like we have contrast with color, we can have contrast with movement by duplicating and then setting our wave speed to negative, where it will give us the reverse effect of this. And that's interesting in itself. Like, this is already kind of a cool background. In fact, the fifth video challenge of April will be specifically about making backgrounds. But this one, that's not what we're doing here necessarily, but it is for this one slide. But I want to differentiate these lines a little bit. So I am going to I'm going to go back into the second one that we made. And go to the repeater, transform repeater, and I'm going to scale these way out and then make the stroke really large, something like that. And then maybe a multiply or an overlay. Yeah, let's see what this looks like. So something like this, I think could work well for our background. Now, I already have rendered this out for us. I already have a version of this rendered out that we're going to use. It's not quite the same. I don't remember what the settings were exactly for that. But if you did want to render this out, a couple of things I would look at first. So right now, you might not be able to see it, but if I zoom in here, because of the wave warp effect, these edges are sticking. You can kind of see where the wave is pinching them in. And you can pin these. If I go pin center, pin edges, all edges, you can see that it does that, but it straightens them out at the edges. If you don't want that, super simple solution, Control Shift C or Command Shift C, move all attributes to the new composition, and I'll call this waves BG or something. Click OK, and now you should be able to just scale this up beyond where that's clipped. And so that's what I did before rendering, because the rendering is pretty simple. Control M, Control or Command M will take you to the render. You could go to Media Encoder if you wanted to, but I just used a H.264 at the same settings as my composition, and it imports fine into Express. So that's one element. This is going to be for our starting soon screen. And then I want to talk about these bullet points. If you don't remember, they look like this. Like this right here. So I thought it'd be cool to have them come in a unique way as well. Now you could use animation in Express, but it's sort of limited. So I wanted to open this up so you could use just about whatever you wanted to and make whatever you want in After Effects. But let's take a look at these real quick. The way I made this one, that's why I have two of these, by the way, because I just made these in different ways, and I thought you might want to know how. And again, simple. I am just going to bring the pen tool out, make a line. It should propagate at about 217 on the stroke, and then if you dive into that shape 2 in this case, and go to the stroke, and then choose round cap. That is how I made that one. So we don't need that shape. I was just demoing. And then the other one, you might have guessed it, rectangle. And I'll just kind of eyeball this to about the right size. And then if you dive into that and you go to the rectangle path, you have a roundness option, and you can just round that out to taste. And that is how I made that. But I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to use the other one. But I'm going to start with a new composition, because we're going to make these bullet points kind of wave animate in. And I'll call this bullet point. Okay. I am going to copy that. Did I get rid of it? I got rid of the other one. Okay. Control C and Control V. I'm just bringing this over, and then I am going to align it to the center, because there's a couple of things we're going to have to do process-wise to make this work in Adobe Express. But first, let's animate. So real simple. I'm going to set up a position. I'm going to go to about a second with another keyframe. Take this first keyframe and move our shape out of the way. And this should give us boop. So that's pretty simple, but that's not a reason to use After Effects, I don't think. You can do more with it, but I am going to use the same effect we just used. I'm going to add a wave warp to this. And again, this would all be to taste for whatever your template would be, but I'm going to use this wave And I'm going to move this way up because I want this to kind of like snake in, I guess. And let's set the first, let's see, we're going to animate the wave height starting at the first keyframe of our position. I'm going to press U to get all of that up so I can see all the keyframes. And then at the last frame, I'm going to press 0 and set the last keyframe. So now when I play this, it looks like it snakes in. And that's going to be how our bullet points are going to come into this. I don't know that this actually works very well for a hearing aid or a wellness situation, but that's what we're doing. I would probably add an easy ease. I believe I did because I have already pre-rendered similar animation to this. But that is what it's going to look like. But also before rendering, like I was saying, there are a few steps you have to take. Yeah, there's a little bit of wiggle happening here. The few steps you have to take is making this sort of a black and white composition. And that's going to be so we can use our duotone and our, I believe, overlay in Express to get us to the color and the way we want this to look in Express. First things first, let's see, grab this shape. I'm not sure. Oh, there we go. Grab the shape and change this to black. And then we need a white background control or Command Y. Convert this to white. Click OK. Drag this below. So two things we're going to need rendered. One, the video. So we've got the video and optionally a still frame. And I already have that saved off as a Photoshop file. So now we can start building all of this stuff out in Express. And I do have this kind of a bake the cake situation going on, but we're going to try to get to as much as we can. First, let's add a new frame, insert frame. And I'm going to drag this over in front. And the first thing I want to do is go to My Stuff, upload from device. I'm going to bring in our start waves. And let's see, does it play? It does play. That's going to be our starting soon. But we can come over and grab the same type we've been using. If you come over here and copy and then paste, and we can change this whole thing to say starting soon. Stretch this out a little bit so we can then align the whole thing using our little snapping guide. And then if you wanted to, you could borrow another piece. I'm going to borrow this bullet point, copy that, go back to the beginning. Just going to put this behind everything. Drag this below our type. Maybe pull this out. Could scale it up. It all depends on what you want to do. I'd probably darken this a little bit just so it stands out. And that's a decent starting soon little sign that you could have on before your presentation if you want. Now let's jump to these bullet points because this is a little bit tricky, but it involves having multiple slides. I will set up one of them and then I'll walk through what you do for the others. The first thing I'm going to do is delete all of these. And then I'm going to bring in our animated bullet point. I'm going to go ahead and play it so I can stop it when it's done. Size it up and drag it below our type. Uh-oh. Tried to drag it below our type. There we go. So now I can actually place it where I think it looks good. And so this you do have to align a couple of layers here, and it's not too hard to do. I'm going to go ahead and multiply this and then go into our effects, add the duotone for our shadow. I want this purple. And for the highlight, I want white so that our multiply works. And right now, you already do have a bullet point coming in. Now, you could animate this so that you could have this form and have this stop and extend forever. But if you wanted to add You know what? We could do it that way. We can just do it this way because this will come on. And on the next slide, you have to have the solid one. Let's go ahead and bring that in. Bullet point frame open. And it's the same thing. You can see that it's the same. And we're just going to try and line this up. And it's going to be easier than you think because we can just duotone this as well. Grab our colors that we want. And then multiply this one. And then scale it. Let's see. And it should lock into the same position. But then you can see the problem. It's overlaying. Then you have to go into the timeline. There's a few steps here, but once you set it up once, you'll know how to do it. So in the timeline, and I'm going to leave these separated for now. In the timeline, we can see a preview of where this fully forms. You can kind of watch it come out over. So around, I'll say around the 1.5 second mark, I'll pull this back. And then I will grab this and pull this back behind it. So as one ends, the other one begins. And you might have to kind of fiddle around with this a little bit just to see. Yeah, there we go. Now I can pull it below the type and you should see it. It should work pretty decently. There was a little blip. That's probably because there's a little gap in there. Let's see if I can pull that. So there is a little bit of aligning it just to kind of check it out to see if it's going to work. There we go. That's going to work for us. So the next step you would have to do, and I know we're running out of time here, but the next step is you'd have to make a copy of this, a duplicate of this, and let's go ahead and play that one so we can see where we are with it. But what you'd want to do is delete the playable version of this, and you can tell which one's playable because it'll have a little play signal in it. Just delete that. Actually, you're going to, in this case, we wouldn't delete it. We would duplicate it and bring it down for our second one. And it gets very confusing until you've done this a couple of times. But I do want to delete the first one. Okay, I think I got the wrong one. Let's see. I grabbed the wrong solid. Let's undo this. Okay. All right, I promise this works. Yeah, okay, I've got the right one now. I'm going to bring this in. There we go. So what we'd want to do with the first one is delete that one, but in our timeline, we have to make sure that our solid is at the beginning. Because as that one would, as you go to the next slide, the first bullet point would already be filled in. So if I go to presentation, it's not completely finished, but if I go back in presentation mode and I'm going forward, here's the first slide. Talk about this bullet point, blah, blah, blah. And then you space bar, go to the next slide, talk about that point. Now you see that one disappeared because it doesn't have that solid frame behind it. But I do have, and we've got, I think we have just enough time to get into it. Let me escape here. If I go back, I do have one with a little bit of bells and whistles. And we'll take a walk through that one as we wrap everything up. If it'll load. Okay. So this is our presentation. We can start with our starting soon. This is all custom. And then we could go to the next slide. And I even animated some of the stuff beneath that. Let me get rid of my face. You can see I put a little animated sound bar, and this top part animates just like this animates. And I'm just going to go through the slides. Here's bullet point number 1, bullet point number 2, talk about the bullet point, and then on to 3. So you can customize these templates and make them a little more fun and exciting. Now you have to, of course, make sure the video you're playing, because it won't loop, is long enough to fill the time you're going to be on the frame, or have it fade off in some form or fashion. But I think that's a very fun way to kind of spice up these templates that we have. And I think I think that's going to do it for us today. Yeah, we've got, oh yeah, before I forget, we have another roller troll coming up next Monday on Twitch. Don't forget, it is going to be an earlier time. I think it's 11:30 Central Time. I'm not sure. I'm going to find out and post about it. But we will be back here for another video challenge next Tuesday at this exact time. And that is going to do it for me. Bye, everybody. I hope you have a good one. Stick around, though, because Ellie is up next. And we hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.